Please subscribe, like and share this content. It means a lot to us. Thank you in advance.
To U.S. Code Chapter 5, Library of Congress. To U.S. Code Paragraph 182C, Revolving Fund for FEDLINK Program and Federal Research Program. A. Establishment. There is hereby established in the Treasury a revolving fund for the Federal Library and Information Network Program, hereafter in sections 182A to 182D of this title referred to as the FEDLINK Program of the Library of Congress, as described in subsection F1, and the Federal Research Program of the Library of Congress, as described in subsection F2. B. Individual accounting requirement. A separate account shall be maintained in the revolving fund under this section with respect to the programs described in subsection A. C. Fees for services. 1. In general, the librarian may charge a fee for services under the FEDLINK program and the Federal Research Program, and shall deposit any such fees charged into the account of the revolving fund under this section for such program. 2. Advances of funds. Participants in the FEDLINK program and the Federal Research Program shall pay for products and services of the program by advance of funds. A. If the librarian determines that amounts in the revolving fund 1. Are otherwise insufficient to cover the costs of providing such products and services, or B. Upon agreement between participants and the librarian. D. Contents of Fund 1. In general, each account of the revolving fund under this section shall consist of the following amounts: A. Amounts deposited by the librarian under subsection C. B. Any other amounts received by the librarian which are attributable to the program covered by such account. C. Amounts deposited by the librarian under paragraph 2. D. Such other amounts as may be appropriated under law. 2. Deposit of funds during transition. Notwithstanding section 1535D of Title 31, the librarian shall transfer to the appropriate account of the revolving fund under this section the following: A. Any obligated, unexpended balances existing as of the date of the transfer which are attributable to the FEDLINK program or the Federal Research Program. B. An amount equal to the difference as of such date between I. The total value of the supplies, inventories, equipment, gift fund balances, and other assets attributable to such program, and 2. The total value of the liabilities attributable to such program. E. Use of amounts in fund. Amounts in the accounts of the revolving fund under this section shall be available to the librarian, in amounts specified in Appropriations Acts and without fiscal year limitation, to carry out the program covered by each such account. F. Programs described. 1. FEDLINK. In this section, the FEDLINK program is the program of the Library of Congress under which the librarian provides the following services on behalf of participating federal libraries, federal information centers, other entities of the federal government, tribal governments, as defined in 40 U.S.C. 502(c)(2)(b), and the District of Columbia. A. The procurement of commercial information services, publications in any format, and library support services. B. Related accounting services. C. Related education, information, and support services. 2. Federal Research Program. In this section, the Federal Research Program is the program of the Library of Congress under which the librarian provides research reports, translations, and analytical studies for entities of the federal government and the District of Columbia, other than any program of the Congressional Research Service. To U.S. Code Paragraph 182D, Audits by Comptroller General. Each of the revolving funds established under sections 182A to 182D of this title shall be subject to audit by the Comptroller General at the Comptroller General's discretion. To U.S. Code Paragraph 182E, Library of Congress National Collection Stewardship Fund. A. Establishment. There is hereby established in the Treasury of the United States, as an account for the Librarian of Congress, the Library of Congress National Collection Stewardship Fund, hereafter in this section referred to as the Fund. B. Contents of Fund. The fund shall consist of the following amounts: 1. Such amounts as may be transferred by the librarian from available amounts appropriated for any fiscal year for the Library of Congress under the heading Salaries and Expenses. C. Use of amounts. Amounts in the fund may be used by the librarian as follows. 1. The librarian may use amounts directly for the purpose of preparing collection materials of the Library of Congress for long-term storage. 2. The librarian may transfer amounts to the architect of the Capitol for the purpose of designing, constructing, altering, upgrading, and equipping collections, preservation and storage facilities for the Library of Congress, or for the purpose of acquiring real property by lease for the preservation and storage of Library of Congress collections in accordance with Section 1823A of this title. D. Continuing availability of funds. Any amounts in the fund shall remain available until expended. E. Annual report not later than 180 days after the end of each fiscal year, the librarian shall submit a joint report on the fund to the Joint Committee on the Library and the Committees on Appropriations of the House of Representatives and Senate. F. Initial 5-year plan not later than 6 months after May 5, 2017, the librarian shall submit to the Joint Committee on the Library and the Committees on Appropriations of the House of Representatives and Senate a report providing a plan for expenditures from the fund for the first 5 fiscal years of the fund's operation. G. Notifications of transfers prior to any transfer into the fund, the librarian shall notify the Joint Committee on the Library and the Committees on Appropriations of the House and the Senate of the amount and origin of funds to be transferred. H. Effective date. This section shall apply with respect to fiscal year 2017 and each succeeding fiscal year. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 183, Written History of the House of Representatives. A. In general, subject to available funding and in accordance with the requirements of this section and Section 183A of this title, the Librarian of Congress shall prepare, print, distribute, and arrange for the funding of a new and complete written history of the House of Representatives, in consultation with the Committee on House Administration. In preparing this written history, the Librarian of Congress shall consult, commission, or engage the services or participation of eminent historians, members, and former members of the House of Representatives. B. Guidelines in carrying out subsection A. The Librarian of Congress shall take into account the following. 1. The history should be an illustrated, narrative history of the House of Representatives, organized chronologically. 2. The history's intended audience is the general reader, as well as members of Congress and their staffs. 3. The history should include a discussion of the First and Second Continental Congresses and the Constitutional Convention, especially with regard to their roles in creating the House of Representatives. C. Printing. 1. In general, the Librarian of Congress shall arrange for the printing of the history. 2. Printing arrangements. The printing may be performed, A. by the Director of the Government Publishing Office pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 5 of Title 44, B. under a cooperative arrangement among the Librarian of Congress, a private funding source obtained pursuant to subsection E, and a publisher in the private sector, or C. under subparagraphs A and B. 3. Internet dissemination. Any arrangement under paragraph 2 shall include terms for dissemination of excerpts of the history over the Internet via facilities maintained by the United States government. 4. Member copies. To the extent that the history is printed by the Director of the Government Publishing Office, copies of the history provided to the Congress under subsection D shall be charged to the Government Publishing Office's congressional allotment for printing and binding. D. Distribution. The Librarian of Congress shall make the history available for sale to the public, and shall make available, free of charge, 5 copies to each member of the House of Representatives and 250 copies to the Senate. E. Private funding. The Librarian of Congress shall solicit and accept funding for the preparation, publication, marketing, and public distribution of the history from private individuals, organizations, or entities. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 183A, Oral History of the House of Representatives. A. In general, the Librarian of Congress shall accept for deposit, preserve, maintain, and make accessible an oral history of the House of Representatives, as told by its members and former members, compiled and updated, on a voluntary or contract basis, by the United States Association of Former Members of Congress or other private organization. In carrying out this section, the Librarian of Congress may enlist the voluntary aid or assistance of such organization, or may contract with it for such services as may be necessary. B. Definition of oral history. In this section, the term oral history means a story or history consisting of personal recollection as recorded by any one or more of the following means. 1. Interviews. 2. Transcripts. 3. Audio recordings. 4. Video recordings. 5. Such other form or means as may be suitable for the recording and preservation of such information. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 184, Incorporation of Digital Collections into Educational Curricula. A. Short title. This section may be cited as the Library of Congress Digital Collections and Educational Curricula Act of 2005. B. Program. The Librarian of Congress shall administer a program to teach educators and librarians how to incorporate the digital collections of the Library of Congress into educational curricula. C. Educational Consortium. In administering the program under this section, the Librarian of Congress may 1. Establish an educational consortium to support the program, and 2. Make funds appropriated for the program available to consortium members, educational institutions, and libraries. D. Authorization of appropriations. There are authorized to be appropriated such sums as may be necessary to carry out this section for fiscal year 2006 and each fiscal year thereafter.